Hello everyone, Michael Breddy here from Breddy Musical Instruments. I've got a really exciting new custom bass Xun build unveiling for this video. I just finished completing this for a customer recently, and I'm going to be sending it out in the next few days. So over the course of this video, I'm going to be diving into the background of the build, looking at the wood selection, giving some sound samples of the Xun, and a full song demonstration at the end. So jumping right into this, Xuns are relatively rarely requested. I started out with the Xun, developing the Xuns before I transitioned more into developing lots of ocarinas. But the Xun development is still extremely important for my own efforts at Breddy Musical Instruments. And I personally really enjoy making Xuns and playing them on the side. So every now and then when I do get a custom Xun request, it's always very exciting for me to be able to work on the instrument that really started this whole effort officially. So the customer reached out to me months ago through email. I forget exactly where. They might have probably actually seen some of my prior Xun videos on YouTube, and they were very fascinated with the Xun. They're a multi-instrumentalist with decades of music experience and collecting many types of instruments, and the Xun was not in their current repertoire, and they were very interested in learning it and adding it to their collection. In addition, because I specifically make wooden Xun, it adds a little bit of a unique flavor to the instrument that I think is a bit of a different approach than the typical Xun that you find. So they reached out, and going back and forth, we kind of decided on the key of the instrument, going into the bass B3. So that's my favorite personal size. It's really deep, rich, resonant, booming Xun tone with still kind of a compact profile that allows you to see enough of the wood, and is probably one of the easier sizes, I would say, of the Xun to play. So going back and forth a bunch on the Xun after we established the tuning that was wanted for this. The next and biggest step is the wood selection. So the customer had mentioned that they really would like a wood that they don't have any allergic reactions to, or any sort of reaction to in general, because in the past they have found that certain woods kind of cause a reaction, which is completely understandable for myself. I've actually developed some sensitivities to various oily rosewoods myself, so there are a few species that I stay away from. And one of the woods they had mentioned that they really like and are definitely very comfortable from a reaction standpoint is maple. But they also said that they're completely open to any woods out there, as long as it's not one that could cause an issue. And they kind of gave me free rein to explore the various options. So I kind of went crazy. For me, the wood selection process is one of the most fun aspects of building the instruments, because the instrument, the theme, the aesthetic of the instrument really revolves around the wood selection. And if you've seen past videos, you know that I pay a lot of attention to grain character, grain detail, color, the layout, everything about the wood. So it's very important for me in selecting the wood. And given that I kind of had an open palette to explore, I ended up looking over tons and tons of different options. I actually probably sent them a couple dozen different personally selected wood options, running the range from kind of lower cost to very high cost, over tons and tons of figured woods. I covered really everything that I could find that was really interesting, and really just had beautiful woods. Everything from various curly woods to burls to swirling figure, ebonies and other rare woods, kind of like an Afzalia burl, and a whole bunch of other stuff, unique selections that were out there from various wood sources. And kind of going back and forth over it more, the customer ended up deciding on the maple burl selection that I had found. And it's an absolutely beautiful selection. And I've actually made several maple burl Xun before. Prior to this, I've made 3 maple burl alto E4 Xun, as well as a quilted maple alto Xun and a curly maple soprano Xun. So a lot of maple. Maple is absolutely fantastic because it has unbelievable character, unbelievable figure, and especially with the burls. I mean, burl is my absolute favorite figure. I absolutely love it. The swirling, intense pattern, the iridescence, just the fiery, just grain that just ripples through the whole thing. And also the uniqueness that comes with it, including the natural checks and inclusions and everything else associated in the quirks of working with burl. So the customer ended up selecting the maple burl for this build, and I had originally set on that one block of wood. However, from that same seller, I ended up grabbing a second cut of that burl, so kind of a matching set, just in case. I wanted to make sure that I had enough, and it gave me a little bit more option to play with for the burl layout down the road. So I ended up getting 2 large slabs of maple burl specifically for this build, and that ended up being a really good decision later on, which I'll get to. So kind of jumping into actually taking a look at the wood itself. For me, like I said, burl is absolutely amazing. I've made a bunch of maple burl Xun. This is my first maple burl base Xun, and it's just absolutely, just utterly exquisite. You can see kind of just the insane twisting type figure running through the wood. It's just absolutely, I mean, this is part of what makes instrument making really worth it, is being able to build instruments with woods like these. This is absolutely just unbelievably gorgeous. This is really incredible burl. There's some nice natural inclusions. So there's a natural inclusion here. There's a few natural checks and inclusions in the top. It doesn't affect anything with the instrument otherwise structurally, especially with vessel flutes. They're inherently structurally very stable and resistant to cracking, and I also seal everything on the outside and inside with many coats of varnish for the Xun. So they're very stable, and especially maple is a quite stable wood in general. This burl ended up being probably the toughest maple I've ever worked with. I worked with a whole bunch of maple. The prior 3 maple burl alto Xuns that I made, that ended up being quite soft wood. Really beautiful, really iridescent, but very soft. But this particular burl was really tough. It was really dense, more unusually dense than typical that I've seen for maple. I mean, you can see just how tight that burl figure is. It was really extra dense, and it has this really beautiful darker brown color. Usually the maple is lighter than this, but this is a nice, really deeper rich colored burl that has really set it apart from the other instruments that I've made. So when I got the slabs in for this Xun, I went out with my template and I started laying out the grain and the direction and the orientation and how I might want it to do it. Because these are made in halves, a lot of what I want to do for the grain aesthetically is kind of match how it flows around the instrument. And Burl can be easy in a sense that the wild figure can kind of pair nicely on the sides together, or it can be tricky if there's a lot of irregularities in the wood. And this was one of those cases where the layout was very tricky. I put down the templates. I oriented a whole bunch of different times on that first block that I got, and I just wasn't happy with the pairing of the two halves from that one block. There's a lot of natural checks. There's a lot of inclusions, a lot of, I would say, hidden cavities and voids in the block. I could see kind of hints of them from the top, but I also had to be careful in making some very educated guesses on where I made the cuts. Because if I make a cut in the wrong spot and there ended up being a hidden void where I would glue the edge for the seam, that would be bad. Having voids and checks in the body is not so much of an issue as long as it doesn't interfere with the holes, but on the sides it's very could present issues. And there was a few orientations that I had looked at for that for the layout, and I decided to just sit on it. So I sat on the wood for weeks, probably 2 to 3 weeks. Every day kind of was just out on the floor, walking by it. I kind of just look at it and, think about it and then just go through my normal daily activities. So I was just kind of out there and I was just thinking about it in the back of my mind. But I couldn't quite figure out how I wanted to lay this out. So I decided for this one, a couple weeks in, I would explore trying matching halves from the two blocks. It would result in more wasted wood than typical. I typically really don't like to waste wood, but just how wild the wood was and the transition from burl to curl to the natural grain and the figuring and everything, along with all those voids and checks, really necessitated me to be very careful on the layout of this particular build and getting it how I wanted. So for the front, I knew immediately the area that I wanted. It just had the most intense, most dense figuring of the wood there. Just the absolute tightest curl and everything packed into that area. So I was able to figure that one out pretty easily. The back, however, was a challenge. You can kind of see on this side of the Xun, for example, for the front half, the burl transitions into kind of more standard grain, whereas on this side, you have a little bit more of that kind of burl figure going off. For the back, I wanted to still have that transition of wood from the burl to kind of the natural grain, made it up well. And there was a couple of options in laying it out. I had originally was going to do one way. I cut the first piece out, finally making the decision to move forward with it several weeks in. And on the second one, I stopped. I made a few test cuts. I could see some grain inclusions and voids, and there was one option that I thought would be pretty cool that would have a large check in the back. It would have been higher risk. I think I could have pulled it off, but as I decided to take a little bit of a safer route, which I'm actually very happy that I did, because cutting through the wood, that ended up being a much better selection for matching. So you can see here on the back here, where you have a lot of the burl here, in this area, it kind of transitions into kind of more regular curly grain. So I matched on this side the same, so moving from the burl from the front to kind of a natural grain here, and then continuing that natural grain here and going back up to the burl across here. So I was able to capture that effect really well. And again, this was between two different blocks of maple cut from, it seemed like they was cut from the same, probably the same tree, but not necessarily the same area. So I had to make a lot of, just put a lot of planning into it. On the other side, you can kind of see for the figure, there's this like really nice diagonal feathering type effect with the burl. So I was able to actually find a bit on the back side as well that captured that and made it here. So this side has more of that continuous burl side, where this side has the burl and kind of the natural grain transition. So this is all purely aesthetic. I could have gone a very easy route, just had, just cut from that single block, saved a lot of the wood, paired it together. It still would have been functionally the same, but aesthetic wise, I really like to go the extra mile, especially for these custom builds. Again, every Xun I make is custom made to order because it's just such a low requested instrument, and each one is very special and unique, and each one has a story behind it. And I'm really glad that I ended up having the foresight to get that second block of maple for this build, and also a bit of the patience to take a step back and just sit on it and wait and think about it before moving forward to try to capture what I wanted. So after that, the rest of the build went extremely smoothly. And this is the result. So in terms of tone, I'm going to give some sound samples. So I gave a bit of a hint at what it sounded like in the beginning of the video, so kind of the Breathy Musical Instruments intro theme, but I'll go up and down the full scale to kind of give a full range of what this Xun sounds like. So again, the B3 is my absolute favorite size for the Xun. I just love the really deep resonant tone. This is a really smooth playing bass, plays really easily up and down the scale, even at the high end. Again, there's a lot of muscle memory involved. I've been playing and making Xun for a while, so it comes very easy to me. Someone picking this up isn't going to get it immediately, but with practice, you should be able to go up and down very smoothly and make large jumps between low and high notes pretty effectively with good practice. This Xun, again, not only from the aesthetic side, I really love the maple burl and how everything wrapped around it, from all the physical details in the grain, but the tone of this is really warm and just resonant. This is just a really beautifully resonant tone Xun. And I think, especially with the maple burl, with the natural checks, the natural features, the intense swirl, and the deepness, really captures the really ancientness and spirit of the Xun specifically. I mean, this is a really raw, ancient instrument, and to be able to capture the absolute natural beauty of just this raw, swirling burl. I mean, burl itself is actually a form of cancerous growth in trees. So capturing this really incredible twisting, imperfection. A lot of times in many industries, in timber industries, burls are seen as really bad and they're just cut off or thrown away. But for especially instrument making, burls are very highly prized. And with the beauty, with the imperfections comes just this really natural raw beauty that I think pairs really exceptionally with just the spirit and essence of the Xun. This is one of those instruments that I say this every now and then. I'm pretty jealous of the customer. I know I made it myself, but it's not meant for me. But it's one of those ones that I really wish that this was one of my instruments. I'd love to have this in my own collection, just because I've come to really love maple burl for Xuns in general, and just the smoothness of tone and playing of this particular one, how it came out. This is one of those instruments that I don't want to let go of, but I know it's going to be going to a really good home. And I'm actually really excited to see what the customer ends up doing with this. And they actually mentioned that one of their interests with the Xun was to do Gregorian chant, which is really fascinating. I hadn't even thought of that. And apparently a lot of Gregorian chant stays within a limited scale range, which actually apparently fits perfectly with the Xun. So they'll be exploring Gregorian chant with the Xun, which I think also pairs really nicely with just the raw resonant tone of this instrument. So very excited for this to be going out to a really incredible home, someone who I think will really appreciate not only the character of the instrument, but also the tone, and explore it and add it to their repertoire of instruments that they've collected over the years. And really one of my favorite things about making these instruments and custom instruments is the interaction with the customer. Over the course of this whole build, it's really evolved from, just going over building the wood and the instrument, the wood selection, and giving them updates and everything, but also really getting to know the customer. I think our email chain now is like 40 emails long. Just going back and forth, sharing a passion for instruments and music. Apparently, they're also very familiar with the Boston Early Music Festival. They're big fans of early music themselves, which, if you've been following this effort, I recently attended that in the past few weeks, which was an amazing experience, and I have another video overviewing that as well. But, just sharing this interest in other instruments as well, and kind of establishing this really cool relationship where we can, just share a passion for various instruments, and coming from different experiences, different backgrounds, having that kind of common point. So for me, the instrument making isn't, just making instruments, putting them out there, selling them, and just sending them out, but really getting to know each individual customer, their own story, and hopefully establishing a relationship that continues as well down the road. So very excited for where this is going. And now with the overview of this build kind of done at this point, I'd like to put this again now into a more musical context by playing a full song on this. So for this particular Xun demonstration, I will be playing Flower by Kokin Gumi from their Zen Garden CD. So please enjoy this rendition of Flower. So this wraps up this newest custom Xun unveiling video. This was, again, a custom B3 base Xun made out of just this absolutely incredible slab of maple burl. This was definitely a challenging build from a aesthetic layout, but I think it all came together really beautifully, not only from the look and layout of the burl in the final instrument, but the final voicing of this particular Xun. Again, this is a really hard one to let go of, but I know it's going to be going to a fantastic home. I'm going to be sending this out all the way to Hawaii, so it's going to be going on quite a long journey, but hopefully it will make it there without issue, and customer will have a chance to explore this instrument and discover their own voice with it. So again, a lot of the fun with builds like these is getting to know each of the customers and the background, and I'm really glad I had a chance to speak with this customer and just share our passions with music and instruments in general. So if you like this development, you'd like to follow along more, you can see more updates and videos here on the Breathy Musical Instruments YouTube channel. I'm constantly putting out new videos for ocarinas, for Xun. I have a lot of new instruments in development, some really exciting and quite rare instruments that'll be coming up. So very excited to be tackling those. If you want more updates on kind of really real-time progression of what's going on and kind of sneak peeks on what's to come, the Breathy Musical Instruments Instagram is a really great place for that, where I have I post lots of pictures of wood selection and various stages of building and prototyping and developing new instruments, standard batch stuff, custom stuff, and a whole range of things. So if you like these particular flutes and you want to follow along more, these are the two areas to definitely check out. There's also the Breathy Musical Instruments Facebook page, where I post major updates, batch unveilings, instrument unveilings, videos, pictures, as well as posting to the various Facebook ocarina communities. So with that, I hope you enjoyed following along on the journey of this really incredible Xun. And if you'd like to reach out and commission a custom Xun yourself, you can reach out on any of the platforms that I'm on, as well as send me a direct email, which is included in the information below. And I'd be more than happy to bring more potential players to this instrument and provide you with a unique piece that you can grow with and enjoy as a functional piece of art for years to come. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.